You're geared up, ready to plunge into crystal clear waters when suddenly you realize your dive computer is sitting on your bedside table back home, halfway across the world. Ouch. I hope there's an option for a rental dive computer. Oh, they only sell dive computers, and they're not cheap. Let me show you how to avoid this scenario and ensure your future diving adventures don't turn into a game of lightening your wallet. I've got your back. I've compiled a list of the top 3 biggest scuba packing mistakes that will ruin your trips and how to avoid them. By the end of this video, you'll be packing like a pro, ready to maximize your enjoyment and minimize the stress. Our first packing blunder is for those times where you are flying and then on the next leg they have bag limits and weight limits, and you are frantically trying to repack all your bags just to see if you can wiggle by. You'll either be shipping stuff home, throwing it away, or paying a lot of money for extra bags. Let me show you how embracing the minimalism can transform your dive trip and save stress and money repacking or paying extra fees. First off, mobility is key. But how do we get there? Let's talk about clothing. On a dive trip, you'll spend most of your time in a wetsuit or swimwear. So why lug around a wardrobe fit for a fashion show? Focus on thin, quick-drying fabrics that can pull double duty. A rash guard, for instance, isn't just for sun protection. It can also serve as a casual top for exploring the local town. Here's a pro tip. Pack 2 sets of swimwear. It might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about packing light, but trust me on this one. There's nothing worse than pulling on a damp swimsuit because your only pair didn't dry in between dives or overnight. This simple strategy can make a world of difference in your comfort level. Remember, every item you pack should earn its place in your bag. Ask yourself, will I use this more than once? Can it serve multiple purposes? If the answer is no, leave it behind. This mindset can be challenging at first, but it's liberating once you get the hang of it. I learned this lesson the hard way. On a trip to Indonesia, I packed as if I was preparing for every possible scenario, from tropical storms to impromptu formal dinners. The result? I spent more time managing my luggage in a tiny room than enjoying the vibrant coral reefs. It was a wake-up call that less really is more when it comes to dive travel. It's also worth noting that when we travel, sometimes it's not all about scuba diving. We might have a bunch of land stuff for hiking, for instance. So space becomes a real concern. And that luggage is more like a game of Tetris, trying to pull all the things there with your dive gear. Investing in quality, lightweight dive gear can make a huge difference. Modern travel BCDs and regulators are designed to be compact without compromising performance. Yes, they might cost a bit more upfront, but they pay dividends in convenience and comfort over time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting you skip on essentials. Your dive computer, mask, DSMB, and other crucial items should always make the cut. The key is to be strategic about what you consider essential. The next great blunder of dive packing is showing up with the wrong gear for conditions. Yes, that time when you showed up with a 3mm wetsuit for some very mildly warm water and you froze on those dives. Remember that? Let's get into how we can avoid these awkward situations and be more prepared. First things first, understand how climate and water conditions impact your trip. Knowing what to expect can significantly influence your packing decisions. Are you diving in tropical waters or heading to a colder destination? The answer to this question alone can determine whether you need to pack a 3mm wetsuit, a 7mm one, or you need to figure out how to pack a dry suit. Not to mention, the colder the environment will need the rest of your gear to be compatible. Next up, local dive regulations. Different locations have different rules about what you can bring and what you need to have. Some places require certifications, registrations, or permits, and may have restrictions on certain types of equipment, like no gloves. You'd be wasting precious bag space bringing gloves to somewhere that won't allow them. Imagine flying halfway across the world only to find out you can't dive because you haven't filled out the right paperwork. A little research can prevent this nightmare scenario. Understanding the available facilities at your destination is another crucial aspect. Will you have access to gear rentals? Are there dive shops nearby for last-minute purchases? Knowing this in advance can help you decide what to bring and what to leave behind. On a recent trip to a remote island, I was glad I'd researched and packed spare O-rings and a save-a-dive kit. The nearest dive shop was a 2-hour boat ride away. Here's a pro tip. Don't just rely on general information. Reach out to local dive shops or experienced divers who've been there before. They can provide valuable insights that you won't find in guidebooks or on a website. In the world of scuba diving, information is often stale or outdated, so local shops will have the most up-to-date information often, or you can confirm that the website is up-to-date and active with the local dive shop. Remember, research isn't just about avoiding problems, it's about maximizing your experience. Remember, you're a long way from home. Knowing about dive sites or seasonal marine life migrations can help you plan your dives for the best possible marine encounters. Would you want to miss out on a once-in-a-year manta aggregation just because you didn't know it was going to be there? I wouldn't. Let's talk about how this research translates into packing decisions. Understanding your destination allows you to pack smartly, avoiding both overpacking and underpacking. For instance, if you know you'll be doing a lot of boat diving, you might want to pack a dry bag and seasickness medication. If you're headed to a place known for macro life, you might prioritize packing a magnifying glass over a wide-angle camera lens. Our next massive blunder goes back to where our video began. You forgot that dive computer back home. This happens to almost everyone at some point, but there is one simple trick to make sure you pack like a pro consistently. But first, we haven't talked about what and how to pack yet. Let's explore that now, since packing can feel a lot like Tetris and you don't want to damage your gear. First up, it's nice to put small things with odd shapes in the bag first. That way you can fill in odd spaces with things like dive torches, trim pockets, rash guards, gloves if they're allowed, swimwear, spare dive masks just in case, and spare items custom for your gear in event something breaks you can do makeshift repairs. Next, we've got your life support system, the BCD, and your regulator. Put these in next and consider putting some clothes or your wetsuit in between to give it cushion and protection below it. I will usually put my regulator on top of the BCD. I know some that prefer to carry these in their backpack carry-on as well. Then there's your dive computer, the brain of your operation, along with your mask. I usually put these in a special fitted case to keep them together. Don't forget safety gear like your surface marker buoy. I recently started to pack a dive knife too, but make sure it's checked in, and maybe don't be super sad if it's confiscated anywhere. Of course, have a sheath for it and put it somewhere that's far away from anything delicate. Next, we have our odd-shaped items like fins and clothes. These can go on top of your bag with clothes to protect and sandwich everything else inside. One pro tip is if you have mini transfers on your flights, tight transfers, or questionable ones, it might be good to keep your mask, dive computer, and extra clothes in your carry-on just in case your luggage doesn't make it. You can always rent the rest of the gear. Your luggage may decide that it wants to take a different vacation than you did. Some extra considerations that might be handy depending on your situation are things like defogging solution, charges for all your electronics, camera gear, more clothing, spare dry towel, something to dry your ears out, wetsuit, hoodie for the breeze, bandana for the hair, sunscreen, lycra wraps to make it easier to don and doff your wetsuit. And if you can make them fit with all that, make sure you bring your fins as well. But it's not the worst thing to have to rent if you need to. Anything heavy like weights or an air cylinder, of course, you'll just want to go ahead and rent those from the local dive shops. In terms of organization, you want to ideally make sure nothing heavy and definitely not sharp will be around your dive mask, regulator, or BCD. I will use my spare clothes like rash guard or swimwear to wrap the regulator and BCD as needed. Now that we know what we need to pack and how, the trick to making this consistent and making a pattern of it is creating a packing list. That way you can use it every single time you need to go on another trip, or even on a local dive. I even use these for local dives because it's just been too many times I forgot something going to a dive site. It will act as a baseline for reminding you what to pack, and you can check things off as it's packed. Remember that trip to Indonesia I mentioned earlier? Well, here's the kicker. On my next trip, armed with my trusty checklist and a new packing strategy, I had completely different experience. I breezed through packing and kept my bags well organized. The difference was night and day. I was able to move my minimal bag in and out of that room and be able to unpack everything and get ready for diving faster than anyone else. And another thing worth mentioning is to include a Save a Dive kit that I mentioned briefly earlier. This is going to be filled with parts you might need to repair any of your gear if it breaks, especially if you are remote. This little bundle of spare parts and tools can be a dive saver and a trip saver. Along with the list, work on a system, a order, and compartmentalization to make packing and unpacking easier. If you have multiple legs of your trip, your life will be easier if you put things into compartments. And by compartments, I might mean separator bags in specific areas where you put things. When we travel, we might have two bags, one half filled with our scuba gear between two people and some of our other stuff in another bag. And we're able to stage different pieces of our clothing so that we don't need to get in and out of both bags all the time. So you can use these compartments to organize and move things in between the bags quickly and easily, and even unpack your bag very quick. What I usually do is just go into the room, just take all the little compartments out, put them on the bed, put the bag away, put the compartments into the closet, and I'm good to go. Makes things easy. When I'm repacking, I just put all those bags right back into the luggage. Alright, one more thing about lists. I kind of breezed through in this video a list that maybe wasn't super detailed, and it's probably hard to follow this YouTube video when you're trying to make your own packing decisions. So I went ahead and created a packing list that I normally use, and it's in the description below for you to use as a starter template. You can customize it to your heart's content, but feel free to copy and paste it and start using it for your own purposes. And I hope to see your future trips flow much better. Remember, proper packing isn't just about stuffing gear into a bag. It's going to be the foundation of your trip. And the more easy you can make packing and unpacking, the easier you're going to be able to start diving and enjoying your trip. By following this plan, you're not just organizing your equipment, you're setting the stage for incredible encounters beneath the waves. In addition to making sure you have all your gear and arrive safely to your destination, you might want a quick refresher for your scuba skills. I have just the video for you to watch next, and it will quickly get you up to speed. Check it out here. And until next time.